Alright, we are here in the matter of the state of Iowa versus Stanley Liggins, case number FECR 147696. We are in open court with all counsel present, and Mr. Liggins is also present. The jury is here, about 9:02 or 9:03, but we want to make a record outside the presence of the jury first. Mr. Lawmaker?
Thank you, Your Honor. Actually, a few housekeeping things. Okay. The first is that we've had a couple of sidebars here in the courts of the trial so far, none of which have been reported. Only one, in my memory, involves something other than needing to take a break or housekeeping matters here in the courts of the trial. The exception to that is during my cross-examination of Mr. Zapian. I believe I simply asked for a coach at that point. I don't remember. We had a sidebar. It was both myself and Mr. Walden in court that were outside the presence of the jury. And my question at that point was, given the status of the case and the status of the motions to eliminate the history of this case, whether there would be, if I would be upsetting or running afoul of any of those previous rulings, or essentially the general tenor of the case, given its current status, by asking Mr. Zapian about any drug use at the time. The general consensus of both court and counsel and my concurrence was that may well be ill-advised, and so then I moved on with Mr. Zapian. That's my recollection of sum and substance, excuse me, of the sidebar. I just wanted to make sure that any reviewing eyes would know what took place on that particular sidebar. And again, other than that, I do not believe that we have had any sidebar dealing with substance issues.
Mr. Walton, do you agree with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
I would agree as well. The rest of the sidebars, you might have been one or two others were related basically to logistics and scheduling issues. So I would agree that that's the extent of the sidebars outside the open court.
The second issue, Your Honor, is the only witness that we know of that we may be having some difficulty getting under subpoena is Arnold Pappas, P-A-P-P-A-S. It's the same one I alerted the court to previously about a message that we had received from a judge in Oklahoma who wasn't sure how to deal with the certificate that was sent to him. I think essentially informed us that it meant nothing. Part of the concern with the initial one was obtaining the correct address. We have a couple of addresses for Mr. Pappas that we need to try. The judge that, and we'll be sending them again, and I just don't want them to get thrown in the circular file when we send them new certificates. It was a Judge Russell, and the phone number is 580-726-3594. We would ask that maybe on break, whenever the court has time, to explain it, reach out to the judge in Oklahoma and explain what we're attempting to do, and the meaning of the three-way certificate that was sent. We will send it with corrected ones, but I thought it better that communication take place before we send them these.
I will try and contact him on our first break and keep contacting until I get hold of him.
And just when you know something, Your Honor, we have the green light, then we'll get those on.
I'll let you know.
Thank you. The other thing, Your Honor, is that we were alerted, I believe it was Sunday, to the possibility of some transcripts being read into the record today, and pursuant to the previous agreement of the parties, that would give us an opportunity to take a look at the transcripts and see we had any issues or if we wanted to possibly add additional transcripts for a potential witness. We did have an opportunity to do that. Maybe I should inquire of the state. Is the intention of the state to read into the record those and read it as 5 yet today?
We are planning to read in Joseph Glenn. The other 5 are kind of, depending on the schedule allows, we have a little more flexibility with them than we do live witnesses. So I think Glenn is the biggest issue.
Well, maybe it's best if I simply alert the court the issues that may be presented, and then determination can be made of when to address them. The witnesses that we were informed of last night were Don Lopez, and we have no additional record to make on that. We're fine with reading in the transcript as proposed. The same is true with Mark Titus. I believe that's the testimony from the 1993 trial, and we would have no difficulty with simply reading that, no additions. The areas that we do have issues, first would be Charlotte McCrae. And in Charlotte McCrae, we are actually seeking that both the transcripts from the trials be read in, as well as pages 8 through 15, inclusive of her deposition. And we're also seeking that both of the transcripts from 93 and the one from 95 be read in on Doris Gorman. On Joseph Glenn, the state will be seeking to read in the 1995 trial transcript. And we have no desire that any of the 1993 portion be read in from that transcript. However, we are asking for that portions of Mr. Glenn's deposition testimony also be read in. I just wanted to let the court know that that's what we'll be seeking. I'm not making an argument right now, unless you want to hear argument, but those are the issues.
Does the state have any objection to those?
No, Your Honor, but if I would just like to clarify one point. The notice that we gave on Sunday was that we were going to try and, that was a potential schedule for today. I just want the record clear. These transcripts, with the exception of Joe Glenn, have been on file for many months. I filed these proposed exhibits pursuant to a court order many months ago. So they've been available, and of course, the order allowing Joe Glenn's prior testimony was entered many months ago. So it's not, I don't know if Mr. Hallbaker was implicating this, but it sounded like Sunday was the first time they were aware we were going to do this. These have been filed for many months. And the opportunity to review, object, those sorts of things have been available for many months. Regarding the 1995 transcript of Joseph Glenn, I have gone through that, and there are, I noted some areas that are somewhat problematic, or could be deleted, sidebars, long admonitions before recesses, and I'm prepared to go through those now, because we do intend to call him probably third in line, and that may cover some of the same things that Mr. Hallbaker wishes to cover. Because I just filed Joe Glenn's 95 transcript, it's not file stamped yet, it's not been filed. So if the court wishes, we can address that now, and I have a couple other
All right, but just so I'm clear, the only one of these 5 depositions that you may have an objection to Mr. Hudbaker's comments would be with respect to Mr. Glenn's 95 transcript?
No, Your Honor. I don't object to the use of any other sworn testimony. The court's already ruled on that, and I think that's clear. There's just some items in the Joe Glenn testimony that I think should be deleted. More just because, as I say, there's a long kind of admonition, I think, to the crowd before the recess. There's references of being in review that aren't really relevant to these proceedings.
Let's do this. Let's talk about your other housekeeping matters. I'd like to go ahead and get the jury in and get started with the live witnesses, and then if we have to take a little bit of a longer break for you and Mr. Hudbaker to discuss the parts of the deposition you want, how we can do that and put that on the record.
Yes.
Does that work? Mr. Hudbaker?
Yes.
All right. What are your housekeeping matters, Mr. Hudbaker?
The other issue, Your Honor, is that Mr. Waldman informed me of, and I know that every trial is fully judged, and that time issues and things like that, but of the witnesses that are live that have been called today, he let me know that this morning. So I doubt it, but there might be an occasion where I need to ask for a break in between the direct examination and cross-examination depending upon the witnesses. I don't anticipate that, but I just wanted to let it go.
No problem. Mr. Waldman?
Thank you, Your Honor. At the beginning of the trial, I addressed the issue of exhibits and exhibits that been damaged while in possession of the clerk of court in the basement of the Scott County Courthouse. They were posters that had been prepared, and then, as I also advised the court, it appears at some point they were kind of broken down and folded to be mailed to numerous appellate and federal courts. And I did address that with Mr. Hallbaker. I prepared kind of a memo, and we were able to recreate all of those exhibits with the exception of Exhibit 63. And I have, through the reading of transcripts, and particularly Joe Glenn, when he goes into some deal on State's Exhibit 63, been able to identify what State's Exhibit 63 is. And it is a picture of Jefferson School, aerial picture of Jefferson School in that area. I believe that's the accurate exhibit because of the references to Marquette Street, which is on the exhibit, Jefferson School, Myrtle Street, 12th Street turning into Vine. And so I believe that, and I have it up on the screen behind me, and I've handed it to counsel, that this is Exhibit 63, and it is the exhibit I would intend to use as State's Exhibit 63 from now on. I had also earlier last week introduced an Exhibit 200. At that time I wasn't positive what Exhibit 63 was. And I was using 200 for some of the witnesses. 63 and 200 turn out to be the same picture, so we will have a duplicate picture.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else before we read?
Not in the state.
Just quickly, Your Honor, since the state has uploaded proposed exhibits related to the transcripts. I'll have to look and see what other ones may or may not have been filed. Would you like us to upload the additional ones that we want read?
You can either upload them or you can get hard copies, so it doesn't matter to me. I can do it either way. Whichever is easier.
They will have to be part of the record.
Yeah, they would be part of the record, but it's an internal way that I can handle them either through an exhibit management order or I can admit them electronically through email, so I can do it either way.
Actually, I think I would prefer just giving the hard copies, you know, the limitation of our standard.
That's fine. No problem. So if they are admitted, they'll be either on an exhibit management order that I'll file at the end of trial, or they will be, if they've been uploaded, I can admit them as we're going along, although I'm going to wait till the end. But certainly they would be part of the exhibits that go to the jury. Make sense?
Would not.
The exhibits that you're going to also admit would be exhibits that would go to the jury.
Right, I was just talking about transcripts.
Correct. Transcripts do not.
Okay, thank you.
But just the exhibits that are referenced and admitted in the transcripts.
Understood.
Everybody clear?
Yes.
All right. So you have a jury here?
Your Honor, the state calls Nathaniel Rhoden to the stand. Come forward and be sworn, Mr. Rhoden.
Rhoden, you stand right up here. Please raise your right hand and be sworn in. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Sit right here.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tell us your name, please.
Nathaniel Rhoden.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone?
Nathaniel Rhoden.
Please spell your first name for us.
Nathanel.
And your last name.
Rhoden.
Mr. Rhoden, what city do you currently live in?
Right now I'm in Pensacola, Florida.
Are you a father?
Yes, I am.
How many children do you have? 6 children. How many grandchildren? Sorry about that. What I want to do, Mr. Rhoden, is draw your attention to events occurring in 1990. What city did you live in 1990?
Illinois, Rock Island.
How long had you lived in Rock Island, Illinois, as of 1990?
All my life.
Born and raised in Rock Island. Now, Mr. Rhoden, I'm going to draw your attention to events occurring in September of 1990. Do you recall events occurring the day a little girl by the name of Jennifer Lewis disappeared?
Yes, I think so.
Do you know a family by the name of Glenn's?
Yes.
And who do you know in the Glenn family? What names?
Sherry, Jennifer, and Ace.
A-C-E, Ace?
Yes.
And that's Sherry's husband?
Yes.
Were you at the Glenn household on September 17th of 1990?
Yes.
Were you there more than once that day?
Yes.
Do you know how many times you were in and out of the Glenn household on September 17th of 1990?
Not really 2-3 times. I go there often. I go there quite a bit. That's enough.
All right. So the first time you went to the Glenn household on September 17th of 1990, who was there?
It was Ace, Sherry, Jennifer.
The first time you went there?
I think so.
Okay. Did you go there on one occasion when there was somebody in the backyard working on cars?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Did you know the guy working on cars in the backyard?
No, I didn't.
Did you know his name?
No.
Now, when you were there and he was working on cars in the backyard, was anyone else there?
I think it's Stanley showed up by then.
All right. And then at some point, what time do you think you were there the first time? Approximately, on September 17th.
I don't know, I'm gonna say probably in the morning and around noon.
All right. And then at some point you left the Glenn household.
Yes.
Where did you go? Do you know?
Yeah, I went home.
And then you returned to the Glenn household?
Yes.
About what time did you return approximately?
When my son got out of school, it was after 3:30.
Right, so this time, the second time you went to the Glenn household, you brought your son with you?
Yes, I did.
And what was his name?
Arthur Rockwood.
Rockwood?
Yes.
Arthur? How old was Arthur Rockwood back then,
He
approximately?
was like 11.
And it sounds like you went and got him from school.
No, I got it from my father's house.
Okay. But it was after Arthur was out of school.
Yes.
And how were you getting around at that point?
Walking.
You didn't have a car? So you and Arthur went back to the Glenn household, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did Arthur do when he was there?
Just playing with Jennifer.
And then at some point, did you leave the Glenn household again?
Yes, I did.
Where did you go that time?
To the liquor store.
What did you do at the liquor store?
I bought liquor.
Did you take it back to the Glenn household?
Yes, I did.
Who was at the Glenn household when you returned with the liquor?
It was Ace, Sherry, Jennifer, my son, Stanley, and me.
Now, when you say Stanley, did you know his last name at that time?
Yes, I did.
What was Stanley's last name?
Liggins.
Is that Stanley in the courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
And will you describe where he's seated and what he's wearing?
Sitting right there with the Grace, jumpsuit or whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
And does he have any eyewear? Is he
Yeah,
wearing
he wearing the glasses.
dark glasses? Now, how long do you think you stayed there that last time after you returned with the liquor? About how long were you and Arthur there?
I don't know, a few hours I would get.
While you were at the Glenn household, did you have a conversation with Stanley Liggins?
Yes, I did.
Did you set up or arrange to have a meeting with Stanley Liggins the following day on September
Yes, I did.
On September 18th? And where did you and Stanley Liggins agree to meet on September 18th?
At the Glenn's house.
And what time did you and Stanley agree to meet at
I
the
think it was noon or 10 or noon, one of my came.
So you and Arthur eventually left the Glenn household back on September 17th. You and Arthur eventually left the Glenn household, is that right?
Yes.
And who was there when you left?
The same people.
Ace and Sherry, Jennifer, and Stanley Liggins?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, you had the understanding that you would return the next day at noon or 10 to have a meeting with Mr. Liggins at the Glenn household.
Yes.
Did you return the next day on September 18th?
Yes, I did.
How did you find the condition of the household, the people?
Everybody's crying and crazy.
And was that the first time that you had learned that something had happened?
Yes, it was.
So before you went to the Glenn household on September 18th, you weren't aware of what was making them so emotional and upset? So what did you learn had happened?
That Jennifer was missing.
And so there you were on September 18th at the Glenn household for your arranged meeting with Mr. Liggins. Is that right? Did Mr. Liggins ever show up to that arranged meeting?
No, he didn't.
I'm going to show you what has been admitted into evidence here on the screen. There we go. As this is State's Exhibit 61, Mr. Rhoden. Do you recognize what's depicted in State's Exhibit 61?
Yes, that's his house.
That's the house that you were at on September 17th and 18th
Yes.
of 1990? Yes?
Yes.
And you said that you, back in those days, you were on foot.
Yes.
You didn't have a car.
Right.
Do you know whether or not Stanley Liggins had a car?
Yes, he did.
And what do you recall as the description of Mr. Liggins' vehicle back then?
Yes, it was a red little square car.
A little what car?
Little red car,
Okay.
like kind of square.
Square? Okay. And do you recall where Mr. Liggins would park when he was at the Glen residence?
It was right behind the white car or whatever they call it.
Park in the driveway here,
Yes.
where the white car is? Is that a yes?
Yes.
Take a look at my notes here, sir. Thank you, Mr. Rhoden. I don't have any further questions for you. These attorneys may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, Mr. Rhoden. You were on foot. How close did you live to Glenn's?
I lived on 8th Street.
So it wasn't a very long walk for you. Were you present every time Mr. Liggins visited the Glenn's?
I can't say that, but, you know, I was over here quite a bit, you know, that was good for you.
But if you weren't there, you wouldn't know if Mr. Liggins had visited in your absence.
Yeah.
And clearly, in State's Exhibit 61, which is a picture of the Glenn's house that has that white car over there, if somebody came to visit the Glenn's and there was a white car in the driveway, they wouldn't be able to park there, right?
Right.
Okay. Do you know if to the right side of that picture, there's another driveway there?
Yes.
Did people use that driveway also to get to the backyard of the Glenn's?
Yes, they did.
And so that was, is your understanding that the house next door wasn't being used by anybody?
I don't think it was.
Is your understanding that's why people felt free to use that?
Right.
And so it wouldn't be uncommon, because it sounds like people visited Glenn's quite a bit. You would find cars visiting Glenn's, both in the driveway that goes to their property, one right next door.
Yes.
Either way, you can get in and out,
Right.
out of the backyard.
Yeah.
Make sure you let information. She's taking the
And also that. Let me ask you about the liquor store. The liquor store, do you know the name of the liquor store you went to?
Yeah.
What was that?
Max.
Was it ever known by any other name?
Probably, I don't recall.
Do you know if it was, how long had you lived in town there?
All my life.
And how long have you been aware of Max Liquor at that point?
For the teenagers. But I mean, it wasn't Max or something else. I just can't remember the name.
Do you know if it was referred to Duncan's Liquor?
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you know where Mr. Liggins lived?
No, not at all.
So you wouldn't know if it was in walking distance or anything like that? And the vehicle that Mr. Liggins had, do you know if he was the owner of the
No, I
home?
wouldn't know that.
So you wouldn't be able to know if he owned it or was using somebody else's vehicle?
Right.
So you wouldn't know if the reason that he didn't come to this meeting that you were supposed to have the next day was related to whether he just didn't want to come or the fact that he didn't have use of the vehicle. Did you ever see Mr. Liggins walk to the Glens?
I can't recall. He might have, but I can't recall.
As far as you know, the memory that you have of the vehicle, he always drove to the Glens.
Yeah.
While you were at the Glen home, did you see an individual, or did you know of an individual named John Brown?
No.
So, you don't know who John Brown is?
No, not by that name. No.
So, at the times that you were at that house, the only people that were there would have been Mr. Liggins, Sherry, Ace, Jennifer, and the individual in the backyard working on the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And of course your son.
Yeah.
Do you know the name of Eddie Zapian?
Who?
Eddie Zapian.
No.
Do you know the name Teresa L?
Teresa who?
L. Did you know any, were there any other women there at the house when you were there?
I don't recall.
Do you know what time you left?
No.
That was an unfair question,
Yeah.
because you had gone there, left, and then come back. Do you know when you left for the final time on the 17th of September?
I really don't know. I can't remember.
I don't have any further. Thank you.
Anything else?
No redirect. Thank you very much, Mr. Rhoden.
Thank you, Lisa.
State will call Donald Schaeffer.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your full name for the record.
Donald D. Schaeffer,
Spell your last name, please.
STHAEFFER.
What is your current occupation?
I'm retired. Oh, my current occupation, I'm sorry. I'm retired police officer of the city of Davenport. My current occupation is I'm the deputy medical examiner for Scott County, Iowa.
Let's talk about that a bit. As deputy medical examiner for Scott County, Iowa, what are your duties?
Basically, I go out on all deaths that occur outside of the medical facility, investigate it to determine manner of death.
And how long have you been doing that?
About a year and a half.
And I believe you said previously you're a retired police officer.
Yes,
Where were you a police officer?
for the city of Davenport.
How long were you a police officer for the city of Davenport?
44 years.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for purposes of identification, State's Exhibit 201. You recognize what that is?
Yes, in my curriculum BK throughout my whole career.
And did you prepare that?
Yes.
Does that summarize your training, education, and professional experience as a police officer?
Yes.
This time I don't admit State's 201.
Any objection?
No objection.
Exhibit 201 is admitted.
Talk about your educational background first. What is your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice and psychology. I also attended a certified public manager degree from Drake University.
You have training specific to becoming a police officer.
Yes, I mean, as far as when I got hired, I completed 240 some hours at the State Academy, and then throughout my career, went to numerous schools.
And those would be included on State's Exhibit 201, the numerous trainings that you have attended as a police officer.
That is correct.
Let's talk about your 44-year career with the Danforth Police Department. When did that begin?
In 1971.
And what were your duties as you began to be a police officer?
After completing the academy, my first 3.5 years, I was in the patrol division, pretty much between the afternoon shift and night shift as a uniformed officer.
Did you receive a promotion?
Yes, I was promoted to corporal in about 1975.
Continued to be in the patrol division at that time?
I was still under the patrol division, but specialized in the traffic bureau.
Promoted in that position?
Yes, promoted to sergeant in 1977, 76, 77, something like that.
If they did, how did your duties change when you were promoted to sergeant?
Basically, each time you got promoted, you get feedback. Each time you got promoted, you went back to the patrol division uniform because it was like the best training that you could get in that new position, and you also had other mentors of equal rank that could assist you in that developing. And so after I left that Traffic Action Investigation Bureau, I went to patrol and primarily was in the afternoon shift back in uniform.
At some point, did you transfer out of patrol?
Yes.
At some point, did you become involved in a street crime unit?
Well, the reason I hesitated on that was the original street crime unit, we had a chief that was retired from New York City, who became the chief of Davenport, Iowa. And street crime was under the patrol division. He was starting a new unit in Davenport. He wanted to start a new unit in Davenport, and it would have been in the patrol division as a plainclothes unit.
All right. And so what is a street crime unit? Can you explain what the function is?
Well, the theory behind it was patrols out there in uniform, driving around, being a deterrent and responding to calls normally after the fact. Detectives are out there following up on crimes that have occurred by doing interviews with people and so forth. Street crime was to go out there and be proactive and actually work targeted areas primarily for robberies and burglaries. So some of those duties would be maybe a lot of lengthy surveillances if you had people doing the burglaries, or if you had muggings, purse snatching and so forth. We would actually put a decoy out instead of having citizens get mugged. We would try to catch them in the act with one of our own officers.
So how long were you involved in as a sergeant in the patrol division and street crime unit?
2 years.
Were you involved in forming the street crime unit?
Yeah, my first part was that Chief Conlon arranged that I could go out and work in the street crime unit in New York, which I did, and then I came back and developed that program in Davenport.
What was your next promotion then from sergeant?
I was promoted to lieutenant
And when was that?
1978, I believe.
We can use your statement if you want to remind.
March 1979.
And what did those, then you're now you're a lieutenant, what does a lieutenant do as opposed to a sergeant?
Lieutenant is more administrative, running a bureau or something, or running a ship. So again, when you're first promoted, you went back out to the patrol division, and I was assigned to the afternoon shift, in charge of the afternoon shift in the uniform patrol division.
At some point then, did you become the commander of the detective bureau at the Davenport Police Department?
Yes.
And when did that occur?
That was not until 1987. We missed a step there too, I'd like to point out.
Okay.
There was a restructuring within the police department, and the street crime unit was taken out of the patrol division and assigned to the detective bureau. And I was reassigned to the detective bureau as a lieutenant in charge of the street crime unit. And there was a combination the chief had combined vice narcotics and street crime unit as one. That's how we became at a level for lieutenant.
And that was done in 1987?
No, that was 1982 through 1987.
And what changed in 1987, according to States 201?
New chief, another restructuring, and at that time then the new chief, Chief Lester, gave additional duties, and that's when I took over the detective bureau as well. I had pretty much both the street crime, vice narcotics unit, and the detective bureau.
Well, what's the difference between street crimes, vice narcotics, and detective bureau?
Basically, the detective bureau is the plainclothes unit that can just go around and do interviews without distracting people. They identify who they are and so forth. The street crime unit and vice narcotics unit are undercover officers, and obviously we try to keep their anonymity.
So then in March of 1999, you were promoted to captain of the Davenport Police Department?
That's correct.
And then how did your duties change then when you became a captain?
There's only 3 captains in the department: chief, assistant chief, and 3 captains. And the captains are more ones totally administrative, mostly budget and things of that nature. I represented the divisions are patrol division, criminal investigation division, and services division, and I represented the criminal investigation division.
At the time of the crime involved in this case in September of 1990, which of these positions would have you held?
I would have been a lieutenant still in 1990, in charge of the detective bureau and the street crime vice narcotics unit.
Now, in 2000, you were promoted again?
Yes.
And what promotion was that?
Assistant chief of police.
And how did your duties change at that point?
Strictly, the actual duties to it it's called the executive officer. I would run the operation of the police department, and the chief himself would probably do more of the meetings outside the police department and political aspects of it.
And when you're the major, it was the rank, as assistant chief of police, how many individuals are you overseeing at that point?
Approximately 230.
You received another promotion from there?
Yes.
And what was that?
Chief of police eventually.
Chief of Davenport Police Department?
Yes.
And how long were you chief of the Danforth Police Department?
Well, I was chief a couple of different times. I was an interim chief. Really like being the assistant chief, the executive officer. And so when that current chief had retired, I was interim chief for approximately about a year until we had a selection. And then I went back to my former position as assistant chief. And then after that individual retired, I was interim chief again, and then I took a test and so forth, and was appointed by the city council and city administrator as the chief of police, and I retired as the chief.
And when did you retire?
2015.
Were you involved in the investigation of the murder of Jennifer Lewis?
Yes.
That became a kind of multi-jurisdictional investigation.
Yes.
I'm going to have you kind of explain, would like to have you explain the geography of the Quad, what's called the Quad City area. What are the Quad Cities?
Well, it's a combination of 5 cities bordered by Iowa and Illinois. 2 cities are in Davenport. It's on the southeast section of Iowa. Would be Davenport and Bettendorf, and then this is divided by Mississippi.
I guess I'm going to show you this exhibit. State exhibit, proposed exhibit 202. Would State's Exhibit 202 help explain what the Quad Cities are?
Yes.
Come on, move to amend State's Exhibit 202.
Any objection?
None, Your Honor.
202 is amended?
I think there's a pointer up there. Using State's Exhibit 202, can you explain to the jury how the Quad Cities is laid out, what the cities are, and where the bridges are, traffic bridges?
Yes. These are the 5 cities that encompasses Davenport and Bettendorf on the Iowa side. And this is the Mississippi River divides Iowa and Illinois. This is Rock Island, Moline, and East Moline.
And where would the bridges, the vehicle bridges, be located?
There's 5 bridges. We have 280, which is on the far west side of Davenport and Rock Island. We have the Centennial Bridge, which is Davenport and Rock Island. We have an Arsenal Bridge that goes over the Rock Island Arsenal. We have the Bettendorf Bridge that is between Bettendorf and Moline. And we have the I-80 Bridge, which is on the far west section, or east section of Scott County.
Can you show us, and I'm going to show you another exhibit, but the kind of general area of what the Jennifer Lewis investigation encompassed on this exhibit?
On this exhibit, it would be primarily this area right here, close to the Centennial Bridge on both sides, north and south of Davenport and Rock Island. I'd like to point out that I want to give direction. This area of the Mississippi is the only place that runs east and west. And so a lot of times it's confusing for people to like north and south.
So what direction, can you point us to what direction is north on the exhibit?
North is up in this area, and south down this area.
And looking at State's Exhibit, it's already been admitted as 121. Can you point out the landmarks on State's Exhibit 121?
This is a close-up of that area that showed the intersection of Davenport and Rock Island and the bridge there, and the streets involved on both sides of the river.
Mr. Walton, I don't have 121 that's being admitted there.
I apologize, Your Honor. Chief Schaeffer would states Exhibit 121 aid in your testimony in describing the locations in Quad Cities of the various landmarks in this case.
Yes, it's a blow-up of that Quad City map that we admitted earlier from 203.
This done, I move to admit states Exhibit 121.
Your Honor, I would point out there are additional markers on there as far as identifying Jefferson School, Glen Residence, and Hillside Inn. Even with those on there, Your Honor, I have no objection to it.
All right, Exhibit 121 is admitted.
Can you show us where the location of Jefferson School in Davenport, Iowa is?
Jefferson School is right in that area there.
And then where the Glen Residence is in Rock Island, Illinois?
Glen Residence is right there.
And where the Hillside Inn is also in Rock Island, Illinois?
Southern Illinois there.
So I want to direct your attention then to September 17th of 1990. Were you on duty? Were working that day?
Yes.
Were you working at approximately 9 o'clock p.m.?
Yes.
Did something happen at approximately 9 o'clock p.m.?
I was sitting in my office and I heard a call go out that there was a grass fire out by Jefferson School, and the body was found in that grass fire.
When you heard that, you were in your office at the station.
Yes.
What did you do when you heard that call?
Wasn't sure if my captain, which was Captain Ted Carroll, over in his office with Lieutenant Kern. I wasn't sure if they heard that. I stepped into their office and said, "Did you hear that last call which just went out of the body being found at Jefferson School?"
And what did you do after talking to Captain Carroll and Lieutenant Kern?
Went directly to that location.
You know what Captain Carroll and Lieutenant Kern did?
They were right behind me.
How far from the police station to Jefferson School?
Probably less than a mile, maybe 6-8 miles.
How long do you think it took for you before you arrived at Jefferson School?
Approximately 6 or 7 minutes.
Describe what you observed when you arrived at the scene.
The fire department was already there. Mobile fire trucks had already kind of blocked off the area. We parked approximately a block back to the west of the scene, and then they walked us down into where the body was at.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 63. You recognize the whole State's Exhibit 63?
Yes.
And what is State's Exhibit 63?
That's an aerial of that area, which would encompass Jefferson School and 10 block West 12th Street, as well as the area where the body was found in the parking place.
You were involved in this investigation starting on September 17th of 1990.
Yes.
And you were a police officer in Davenport for 44 years.
Yes.
The State's Exhibit 63 accurately fit that area of Davenport, including Jefferson School.
Yes.
This one I move to admit Exhibit 63.
No objection.
63 is submitted.
you explained as you arrived, well, first of all, can you show us where Jefferson School is on State Exhibit 63?
This right here is Jefferson School.
And what street is Jefferson School on?
10th Street and Marquette.
And am I correct, Marquette is a fairly busy, one of the busier streets or more major street in Davenport?
That's right.
Runs north-south.
Yes.
When you arrived, I believe you said that the perimeter had been set up at Myrtle.
Yes.
Can you show us where Myrtle Street and 12th Street is?
Myrtle is this north-south street right there, and that was where anybody pulling up would stop their vehicle and park and walk down.
And testified that the fire department was there.
That's right.
Had they secured the scene at that time?
Yes.
And what's it meant by securing the scene?
There's nothing to be tampered with or altered prior to us getting them.
So they make sure that nobody's going through the scene, going up to the scene, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And did they appear to have it fully secured when you arrived?
Yes.
Who else? Was there anybody else present when you arrived, other than firefighters?
There was a couple of uniformed police officers over there, and then Captain Carroll and Lieutenant Colonel and myself.
You've mentioned the name of both Captain Ted Carroll and Dennis Kern, who basically arrived at the scene simultaneous with you, correct?
That's correct.
And at that time, how many years have you had on the Davenport Police Department? In
18, maybe.
And at that time, you were a lieutenant, a commander of the Detective Bureau.
That's correct.
So you had, how much experience did you have at that time with homicide investigations?
Approximately 4 years.
Captain Ted Carroll, describe him.
Kind of my mentor. Ted was on about 10 years before me, and as I came up through the ranks, or even as a patrol officer, he was always kind of an individual you looked up to. He was a great detective. Learned a lot from him, and so I patted myself after him a little bit as I was going up through the ranks.
On September 17, 1990, an experienced detective?
Yes.
Very?
Very experienced.
Does Davenport have quite a few homicides?
I think we average about 6 a year.
Now, Dennis Kern is another name you had mentioned who arrived simultaneously with you. Describe, first of all, what was Dennis Kern's rank?
He was a lieutenant, same as I was.
And what was his, describe his experience?
He's an expert in forensic evidence.
And at crime scenes investigation?
Yes.
How long have you been doing that, did you know?
Not positive, but probably about 10, 12 years.
Also very experienced
Yes.
in homicide investigation?
Yes.
For all crime scene investigation?
All crime scenes. He was in charge of the evidence bureau.
And when he arrived, what did he do?
Well, Danny would be in charge of that scene, as far as collecting all the evidence and so forth. So the three of us, Captain Carroll, Lieutenant Colonel, and myself, started getting a game plan together, making sure that we had the scene secured and so forth, and then had not tampered with. So no one had approached the body, the victim at that point. We could just see it from about 10, 12 feet from the road. There was a hard road right on the side of it.
So what did you do then?
Well, we just stand with just a couple of minutes. Two of my undercover officers came up. I must tell you that the undercover officers monitor both sides of the river because of the street crime and what the nature of their investigations are. They came up to me and said they monitor the Illinois police radios, and they said that Rock Island had just put out a missing person on a 9-year-old, and that the most identifying characteristic of that individual was that she had protruding front teeth and a gap between those two teeth.
And that was because your undercover guys were monitoring the Rock Island Police Department radio traffic.
That's correct.
And after obtaining that information that Rock Island had a missing girl and her description, what did you do then?
Well, I told Lieutenant Kern I need to go up and identify our victim to see if this was Rock Island's missing person so that we could coordinate that investigation at that time. And so at that point, Lieutenant Kern and I got into a discussion about walking up to the body.
I'm sure what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 58. You know when State's Exhibit 58 would have been taken?
No, not exactly.
But in daylight?
I would, yes, I would, I mean, my best estimate would be the next morning at daylight. We waited until the next morning. We're still, the yellow tape is still up that we had secured at the scene. That was our staging area, as you can see in the north section there.
Can you show us what you mean about the securing the scene?
That's the yellow tape that we had secured the area with overnight. We posted 4 officers up there. We had civil defense lighting the area so that it was pretty dark. And so we secured it all night, and then we were waiting for a daylight search. This photograph would have been taken from an aerial ladder from the fire department.
And obviously Jennifer's been removed at that point.
That's right.
And show us on that exhibit where she would have been.
We covered that area right there so that we didn't lose any evidence in the ground area and so forth after the body was removed.
And there's a landmark up here of a rock that you can see.
Yes.
And that was there when Jennifer was there.
That's correct.
Now, you mentioned before about kind of a staging location or meeting location at Myrtle. Where were we looking at there? Myrtle and 12.
That's Myrtle and 12. We're actually looking to the west at this point, and north would be up the circle.
Jefferson School would be where?
Just a little bit more to the west and up in that area right there.
Now, you testified that you were going to approach Jennifer show you what's been marked in State's Exhibit 60. Now that's, again, the previous night. Does that depict the scene as when you were there?
Yes.
And what did you do in order to identify, or see if you could identify Jennifer?
We were looking to see if this was the missing person from Rock Island. So I had a conversation with Captain Dick Carroll and Lieutenant Kern. And I told Denny I needed to walk up there. And Denny's very particular, Lieutenant Kern's very particular about keeping the crime scene pristine until he processes it. So he said to me, you stay in my footprints, or my footsteps, and we will walk up there. And we went up there. So he monitored everything I did.
So he's controlling the scene, and he doesn't let anybody near Jennifer's body.
That's correct.
Or that area.
That's correct.
But he did take you up to her so you could see if she was in fact missing girl from Rock Island.
Yes.
And how was that done?
Well, obviously, I looked the entire body over. It did appear to be a female white, approximately age 9. And then you could see the protruding upper front teeth and the gap between them.
During what's been entered as State's Exhibit 7. Is that accurately depict what you observed when you went up to identify the body?
Yes.
And when you did that, what did you find out?
That it did appear to be the missing person from Law&Crime.
And how did you make that determination?
Primarily because of the height and that she was Caucasian, and then protruding front teeth.
Did you observe anything else about Jennifer at that time?
The most distinguishing thing at that point, there was a light gray substance that seemed to be melted into her hair and part of her clothing. My first impression was duct tape.
Did you observe that the first time you went up to identify it?
Yes.
I'll show you another exhibit, State's Exhibit 2. Show us on State's Exhibit 2, again, where would Jefferson School be located?
Jefferson School would have been down in this area here.
And,
I'm sorry, down in this area here.
now, where is Myrtle Street in that exhibit?
Myrtle is running north and south.
And where, in that picture, where was Jennifer located?
I believe that's still that landmark of that rock there in that area there, so we're within right in this area.
After you made the determination that the missing girl from Rock Island was now located at Jefferson School, what did you do then?
I sent those 2 officers over to get as much detail as they could from Rock Island at that point. And then I called, we started what we call education. We started calling in detectives and assigning. I had one detective who was already working and still working on the afternoon shift. Had him start camps.
Who did you, if you recall, who did you send over to Rock Island?
Detective Thomas and Detective Dale Susan.
They were undercover guys?
Yes.
And their job was what?
Street crime vice and narcotics unit, not detective, not in the follow of the detective.
But specifically on that night, over there,
they were out doing their normal surveillances on individual robberies and burglaries, but I needed manpower at that point, and so I assigned them to help assist us until we could get more detectives in. That's why they were sent to Rock Island.
I believe you testified that you called in a major case, I think, or what was that?
Part of the restructuring of the police department in '87 was the new chief wanted a major case unit to be able to address these type of crimes and homicides and maybe anything of any great magnitude to the public. So did a bunch of research on it and came up with a major case unit which would encompass either captain or lieutenant that would oversee the entire thing. A supervisor that would be the next level down, and then 2 primary detectives that were going to handle the same case completely through to its entirety. And then there's certain areas that you want to cover right away. So it takes about 8 people minimum to run an education. And so at that point, Lieutenant Colonel would cover the crime scene, which I didn't have any issue with. You'd have to do start giving background on any of your victims so that you can have anybody that she had ran into or associated with in the last 24 hours, as well as if she had, obviously a 9-year-old doesn't have any enemies that would do this to her. So, but that would be the case if one of you had assigned to strictly the background on the victim in the last 24 hours.
And that was done on that night, September 17th?
It was all initiated, yes.
How many officers then were involved in the shooting?
So I called 4 more from home at their homes and came in and briefed them on it and so forth and started an education at that point.
What was done then?
Each of them, one of my prerequisites is that they have to understand the scene, so I met them at the scene, so they knew what we had and so forth, and then give them certain assignments. Part of it, instead of the 2 undercover officers who relieved them of their duties in Rock Island, they sent officers over to Rock Island. We had, eventually we still had the scene, and that wasn't probably cleared, or the body wasn't removed until approximately 11:30 or so. We had the medical examiner and a pathologist at the scene, and then an autopsy was started. The body was transferred to Mercy Hospital in Davenport then, and an autopsy was completed on the spot.
Was anything else done that evening then, September 17th, going into the September 18th day?
Well, a lot was done, but minor stuff where we secured that scene, we made sure we had proper lighting throughout the night. We had 4 officers that were uniformed officers, the squad and so forth, protecting it. So, and then I met with night shift control division and asked them to hold over some of their officers that we could do a daylight search once the sun came up.
Was a daylight, so you worked round the clock in that?
Yes.
As well as many other detectives?
Yes.
And what was done at daylight then?
I think we had 13 officers go back to the scene that we held over the uniform officers. And we did a shoulder-to-shoulder walk through the entire area.
And how does that work?
You cover every square inch or foot of that entire area that you see that we had taped off. And basically, if you come across an item of evidence or something that may be of interest, you stop, notify, we photograph it, and measure it and so forth, so that you know exactly what was found, and then you handle it so that if you need to fingerprint or process it later, it's handled properly. Lieutenant Kern does all that.
Was Lieutenant Kern involved in the shoulder-to-shoulder search of the scene?
Yes.
He directed it?
Yes.
And he said items of evidence are collected. Everything collected at that point?
I'd have to go let Lieutenant Kern answer that one. I don't know for sure. I was not there the entire time.
Okay. After the shoulder-to-shoulder search the next morning, what did you do?
Well, the reason I didn't stay at the scene was I got called into the chief's office, and it was probably about 7:30 in the morning.
Was there a meeting going on at that time?
The chief was meeting with the Rock Island police chief in his office in Davenport.
What was the purpose of that meeting?
Basically, to start a joint investigation between the 2 departments and determine who was going to be the primary investigating agency.
Was that determination made?
Yes.
What was decided about what agency would be the primary investigating agency?
Between the 2 chiefs, I briefed them on everything that I knew up to that point that we had done all night long, and what he had some information from his side of the river, but from what our officers did and so forth over there as well as what we did in Davenport, and from the information from the autopsy and so forth. Between the 2 chiefs, they conversed and they thought Davenport would be the primary agency.
So that point, Davenport Police Department became the primary investigative agency.
Yes.
And that means basically Davenport's in charge of running the investigation.
Yes.
And who at Davenport Police Department was put in charge of that?
I was.
Describe how the multi-jurisdiction investigation, how did that work from there? Starting with now around the morning of the 18th.
So the Rock Island Police Chief assured me that he would give us all the resources we needed necessary to run this investigation. So first of all, I wanted all the individuals who were involved in the case to be in a meeting at our department with our individuals who were there. And so part of the major case, that's a major case unit, we have a meeting every 4 hours. We bring everybody in so that because you couldn't possibly get all the information channeled to everyone directly or without doing a meeting. So we bring everybody in to a meeting every 4 hours, and everybody in the meeting says what they've done or what they're doing. Each individual there can ask any questions back and forth. We get leads off of that. We know maybe the next step in the process that we're going to go into. If we need more resources, we'll say that. And then after the length of the meeting is over, if everybody's very comfortable with it, we will say, let's meet again in 4 hours. So I think that first meeting was like 9:30 in the morning.
You got, at that point, what agencies are involved in the investigation?
Davenport and Rock Island police departments, and we had some of the fire personnel as well, fire marshal.
Davenport Fire Department also was involved in the investigation.
Yes.
Now, so you got all these different agencies kind of spread out throughout the Quad Cities doing an investigation, and then you bring them back every 4 hours so that everybody can kind of get on the same page.
The other thing I want to point out, because we're going to work both sides of the river, and not everybody's familiar with each side of the river, we paired a Rock Island officer with a Davenport officer, so that wherever it led to, we had somebody familiar with that area. So a Rock Island officer or a Davenport officer was always together, or usually together.
Was there an arrangement made when the officers were teamed up, Davenport, Rock Island, was there any arrangement made as far as reporting?
The only arrangement that I really had was that I received all the reports back, whether it was a Rock Island report or a Davenport report. Who was going to do that report was really basically up between the two officers that were working together. They would decide on, well, I'll do this report or that report. And a lot of that was to do that one of them, they may have been behind 3 or 4 reports, and the other one's only behind 2. So he'd say, he'd do the next one.
So typically, out of the team, so to speak, of the 2 detectives, only one would do a report.
Yes.
Of what they both did.
Yes.
Now, I guess maybe back up a little bit and let's talk about the reporting. So these investigators will go out and they interview people and they look at things and then they what? In 1990, what would they do as far as a report?
Well, a lot of the reports weren't done right away. We had one stenographer in the Davenport Police Department that would type reports, so you had to dictate it. Primarily, you could, in 1990, we had 3 ways of doing reports. You longhand the report, actually right-hand it up. Longhand, you could type it, which is stenographer do, or you could type it yourself. And we were just going into a word processing, a computerized word processing.
So these detectives, at some point, they're investigating something and then they have to put it down in writing. That could take some time, correct?
Yes.
And am I correct then that the purpose of this meeting was you didn't want to wait for these reports to go through the whole process of being written or typed or whatever, that you get all the players together and everybody would kind of provide the information that they had so that everybody had the same information.
Yes.
And was that done then pretty much every 4 hours?
Yes.
And what would you do as you obtain new information?
Well, the new information as far as from this meeting, I developed new leads of that, so we might sign more detectives. One of the aspects would have been from the background information from our victim. We wanted to have everybody that was associated with her in the last 24 hours and interview them with, as well as determine what information they had, and either could be a suspect or a person of interest, or they could be eliminated.
How would somebody be eliminated?
Well, one of the aspects of on background investigation, I said was the last 24 hours, we tried to cover every minute of what where our victim was at that time, up to the time that we feel that the time of her death or that she was found. So if we know at the time of death or that she was found, we would also do a timeline on a person of interest, and if that person of interest path couldn't have crossed during that time, we could eliminate him. If that person of interest possibly was the path could have crossed during about that time, then we would look further into them.
Were you able to, in your opinion, eliminate suspects?
Yes.
Did other agencies become involved besides Danforth Police Department, Danforth Fire Department, and Rock Island Police Department?
Yes. I think it was at the next 4-hour meeting we had the FBI. We had the local FBI agent contacted because we were going in across state lines. And he contacted his supervisor in Cedar Rapids. And the Cedar Rapids supervisor, I believe, brought 4 more FBI agents in from Cedar Rapids.
So how many FBI agents were involved?
At one point, I think we had 6 FBI agents.
And that would have been that first day, September 18th?
Yes, sometime in the afternoon on the 18th.
And did they participate in these 4-hour meetings?
Yes.
And did they report back to you then?
Yes.
Now, we talked a little bit about, I think, how Davenport and Rock Island Police Departments were in their reports. Are you familiar with how the FBI did their written reporting?
Yes.
And how was that?
FBI has a different system than ours. They work off a stenography pool out of Omaha, Nebraska. So they did take their reports into Omaha, Nebraska, a steno pool there. When they get to it, they type it up. These are coming in from all over that district. They would type it up. They would send them that typed copy back to that FBI agent, which in this case would be the Danforth or Cedar Rapids. He would proofread it, make the changes with it, send it back for changes, and then it would go to their supervisor.
Long process?
Through all the years I've worked with the FBI, usually it's about a 3-week to 1-month turnaround.
Did you get any FBI reports during the investigation in September from the FBI?
I did not.
And how did you get information from the FBI?
Word of mouth, through the meetings, and through their supervisor.
Was the FBI, did they report to you about an Eddie Zapian?
Yes.
And what was the result of that? Well, when did that occur, if you recall?
I believe it was that next day where we had a list of all the people who were at the house. We were all signed out as different individuals who wanted to try to get some direction at that point. So everybody who was at the house during around that time frame, Jennifer was at the house. We assigned the group of detectives to visit them. Eddie Zapian was taken by the FBI.
After one of those meetings, did he cease to be a suspect in the investigation?
Yes.
What about John Brown? Was somebody assigned, do you know how John Brown was eliminated?
John Brown was interviewed. We knew that he was living in a facility and he was receiving certain medications. In that facility, there was a medication that he was receiving had to be documented. He received his medication at 8 o'clock that night, and we got a copy of the nurse who administered it and logged the time down initially.
One of the locations that Jennifer had been to was a Max Liquor, is that correct?
That's correct.
Was that followed up on?
Well, that night, the Rock Island office went to Max Liquor, and so I believe the owner of Max Liquor, or the clerk at that time, was taken down to the Rock Island Police Department and gave a statement.
In that interview, are you aware if her cleanup person or custodian was discussed?
Yes.
Do you recall that name?
John Gordon.
And in that, what was discovered about John Gordon?
We're trying to determine who we might have seen Jennifer Wilson, and I think Charlotte Craig was the clerk. And, she said,
Charlotte Craig is the proprietor or the clerk at Max Liquor?
yes.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Yes,
She said,
that's the same.
What did you determine about John Gordon?
That he wasn't, they had no contact with Jennifer Wilson.
Was he at Max at the same time she was?
No.
Were detectives assigned to Joe Glenn, Jennifer's stepfather?
Yes.
Specifically?
Well, that night, we want to get as much information we could from the residents. So originally it was the detective working, which was Lynn I sent over there. But our primary detectives were going to be us and Detective Murphy. And Detective Murphy was specifically assigned to Joe Glenn.
So was Detective Murphy's got a specific assignment to focus on Joe Glenn and investigate his whereabouts?
Yes.
How many times, if you know, was Joe Glenn interviewed?
Approximately 7 or 8.
And I take it the mother, Sherry Glenn, also would have been interviewed?
Yes.
Aside from interviewing the individuals that would have been at the Glenn residence, what else was done as far as the investigation on the Rock Island side?
Canvass the neighborhoods.
What is a canvass?
Knock on doors to see if anybody in the immediate area had any information to assist in the investigation.
During that canvass, was one of the individuals talked to, Diane Pemberton?
Yes.
Was one of those individuals talked to, Mary Ann Allen?
Yes.
And what was developed from the canvass?
We have one individual who we had not fully identified at the residence. We had first name only.
What was the first name?
Stanley.
Okay.
And so through the course of the canvass and through the interview with
After obtaining the full name of Stanley Liggins, what else did you find out about Mr. Liggins regarding the vehicle?
We were able to identify that Jennifer Lewis talked to an individual in a four-door maroon vehicle, just about a block from the residence.
So what happened then?
We determined that Mr. Liggins had access to a maroon four-door vehicle.
Whose vehicle was that, if you know?
Brenda Adams.
And who was Brenda Adams in relation to Stanley Liggins?
Girlfriend.
After obtaining the name and vehicle information, what was done?
Well, we wanted to talk to Stanley Liggins as well, just like we did everybody else at the house. Sometime in the evening, I think on Tuesday evening, we located the vehicle in a residence of Brenda Adams' residence in Milan.
Where's Milan in relation to Rock Island?
On the far end of the map, there is sort of Quad Cities of the south end of Rock Island.
So it's abutting Rock Island.
Yes.
And after determining Brenda Adams' address, what was done?
We set a surveillance up on the vehicle.
And we've had Detective Huss testify regarding watching the vehicle, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Wall, is this a good time for a break?
Sure you are.
All right, it's 22:11. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you a break till 11 o'clock. I have an issue I need to take care of. Keep the admonition in mind, do not discuss the case, and continue to keep an open mind. Please rise and Mayor, just to verify that phone number, it was 580-726-3534.
Yes, Your Honor, I did Russell, excuse me.
Russell?
Yes.
Do you know the statute?
It's 819.
Was it 6?